welcome to this edition of Who Gets the China, where we are saving our sanity while we're caring for aging parents. So today I'm super excited to have two amazing people who are experts in the world of libraries and librarians here to talk to us about how the library can support our journey with our aging parents. So welcome. Amy, I'm going to start with you. So Amy DelPo, thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Amy works at the Denver Public Library. She's a library manager and she's in charge of adult services and lifelong learning. But above and beyond that, Amy is an expert in older adults. She founded the Older Adult Services Department at the Denver Public Library. She's received a Metro Vision Award from the Denver Regional Council of Government and a Movers and Shakers Award from Library Journal. And then Robin Filipczak. Robin is also a librarian. She's a branch supervisor at the Denver Public Library. And I remember when Robin went back to school to get her master's in library science. Robin and I have known each other for about, I'm not going to say how many years, but at least 20 something.
Well, we're talking about positive aging, so
we are.
We've probably known each other for about 25 years, Kirsten.
That's what I was thinking. So Robin, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Kirsten. It's lovely to be here.
Amy, I thought I'd start with you. I would love to hear, I know you have lots of credentials. I'd love to hear how it is that you ended up in this role and what made you so passionate about supporting older adults.
Thanks, Kirsten. As you kind of said at the beginning, I was very close to my own parents. As they started getting older and they started dealing with some of the difficulties of aging, I saw that they were still amazing people who had a lot of meaning and joy and growth left, but I saw the world start to treat them differently, and I saw their opportunities start to decline. And that was really depressing for me because I loved them so much and I believed so much in them. And that just sort of got me started thinking about, why isn't the world a better place for people who are getting older? And at the time my parents were starting to do that, I had just graduated from library school. Like Robin, I had gone back to library school. It's like my fourth career. And I was like, what is it the public library? We had so much for children. We had so much for families. And we really did not have anything meaningful and cool for older people. And I just thought, wow, that's really disappointing. So I started researching and really looking into what people need to lead a wonderful older adulthood. And that just led me into this amazing world of what it really means to get older, not the ageist narrative about aging, but what can really happen as we get older.
Libraries are so formative as we're young, right? And as we're young parents, they're very formative. And it completely tracks that they should continue or could continue to be that impactful on our life. But at some point, you stop seeing it as a place for you, I think. People don't realize, like, oh, there's a lot that the library offers me at any age. And so I'm super excited to dig into that. And Robin, I guess to you, in your role, do you get the opportunity to work with a lot of older adults?
I've been so lucky. I came to this career out of a love for curiosity, and I wanted to live the life of the mind professionally. I spent a lot of time as a reference librarian or a research librarian, and then this opportunity came up to supervise one of our neighborhood libraries here. As I was getting to know this library, I found out that 37% of the population in this neighborhood is considered an older adult, how we would define that as 50 plus. The plurality of my customers fit that demographic. And I've just learned from them that this chapter of your life can really be about curiosity and about lifelong learning and finding joy and positive aging. And Amy's been such a great partner in that for my branch, for the system in general, to really arrest those ageist narratives and really see people for who they are. Our older folks are people who want to connect and have community. And I love that population. So I've been really lucky to find myself at a location where we can support that kind of work for that population.
It is nice because I think for all of us working in this space, we really value the storytelling and the experiences and the wisdom that older adults have to impart. And I'm thinking about a post I saw on Reddit today. Somebody said, I'm retired, I'm 70. I don't know what to do with myself now. I'm bored. Like, I don't have the mental and intellectual stimulation of a job. And so all these people were chiming in and they were like, go to your library, be curious, take a class. And kind of what you were just saying about being a lifelong learner. And Amy, I feel like this is going to dovetail into some of the conversation we're going to have, but like keeping your brain active and engaged is great socially and emotionally, but it really helps stave off cognitive decline, right? And just becoming stagnant and not engaged in the world around you. I would love, Amy, if you want to just talk a little bit about what are some of the key things that you feel like people like us who are caregivers of our aging parents from a developmental standpoint and some of the stages. And I think as the kids of these older parents, we don't know what some of those key milestones are. And I would just love to have a conversation with you about, help us get smarter about what are some of those things to be on the lookout for.
It's hard to answer your question a little bit because things like cognitive decline, dementia, physical decline, those aren't really natural parts of aging. Having someone be a caregiver, needing a caregiver in your life, that's not necessarily something that's going to happen to everyone who's older. Or the flip of it is, just because you have older parents doesn't mean you're a caregiver. So I think that's a really important thing for people to understand is that when they think about their own aging journeys, or they think about, I have older parents and what do I need to prepare for? It's quite possible that for our own aging journeys and our parents' aging journeys, they're going to age in a way that they're not going to need a great deal of help until the very, 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 very end. Whereas some people need help early on, like in their 50s and 60s, depending on what kind of things start happening to them.
Mm-hmm.
There are developmental stages of aging, just like there are developmental stages of childhood, but those developmental stages really don't contemplate decline and caregiving. They're more about our social and emotional development.
We want to categorize things because that feels clean and tidy. We know what to expect, right? And what
Yeah,
you're saying, I mean, what you're saying resonates. Like it doesn't really work that way.
it really doesn't. Understanding that people are going to be on their own journey and their own path. There's a lot we can do to determine how that path goes. I mean, you were sort of touching on it a little bit about staying active, staying engaged, staying socially engaged, exercising, keeping our connections with the people we love close and tight. Those will help us age well. But that we've learned a lot about aging, and people are aging well into their 90s. I
Hmm.
mean, it's kind of amazing. And so there's not really one trajectory
Yeah.
that we can follow. If you're a caregiver of an older parent, that puts you in a category where then you can start talking about some of the things, some of the standard things that will happen and what we need to prepare for. But I don't think everyone with parents who are aging are going to experience the same thing.
If nothing else, I've learned
Yeah.
that in talking to so many people, everyone's journey is so different. But something that is constant, there's a couple themes that are really constant. And I'd love to hear from you about how the library can like bring people together. How can the library socially engage people?
At Denver Public Library, we offer a lot of programs we offer programs specifically designed for older adults. We have, like at Robbins Branch, they do something called Discover Walks where they get together and they take walks around Rosh Park and they have a speaker and they can connect and you can see the same people over and over again. We also have programs that are really specifically designed to allow people to creatively engage as they get older. So we have art classes and writing classes. Everything we do is really based in the developmental needs of people as they get older. And so we know that people are looking for meaning, they're looking for connection, they're looking to create, they're wanting to reflect back on their life and make meaning. And so we try to provide programs that help them meet their developmental needs. Because one of the things we know is the stereotype of kind of the older person who's sort of sad and lonely, who maybe doesn't know what to do with themselves. That happens when people's development is frustrated, when they're not offered opportunities. And when we do offer them opportunities to kind of engage in these developmental pathways, they actually do much better. So at the library, we offer classes, also just going to the library and hanging out, sitting in the library, reading books, talking to the staff, looking at the classes not just for older people, but for all adults and participating in those. If people have grandchildren, they can bring their grandchildren to story time and connect with other grandparents.
Robin, I'm wondering, do any examples kind of come to mind for you, sort of being in that local branch where you might have seen an older adult really benefit from some of the programming?
For sure. I have a customer named Daisy, just to
I love that. I want
protect
to
her
be named
anonymity.
Daisy.
I know she's such a delight, a little flower. We were on a Discover Walk. Amy just talked about our Discover Walks. Amy talks about this kind of programming being nutrient dense. It's roasted potatoes. It's not potato chips, which is something I learned from Amy. So, there's the getting outside, the walking, sort of leveled or scaled so that people of all abilities can take advantage of it. And then we have a guest speaker. So there's some sort of, interesting topic that we're gathered around. And then there's always engagement with each other and opportunities to have conversations between participants. So building those connections with other people. And it was really poignant. Our last walk, my customer Daisy said, we were just talking about how meaningful the Discover Walks have been for this community. And she said, I'm not lying when I say the library saved my life. And we were all sort of
Oh.
taken aback by how profound that is, how amazing it is that the library could feel like such a lifeline to somebody. So, there's that sort of sentiment. And then another customer, let me call her Rose. I'll give them all flower names today. She just retired at about 70 years old. She retired last year. I met her just as she was getting ready to retire. And I happened to put our event calendar in her hand, our system wide event calendar. And boy, oh boy, has Rose just gone to town taking advantage of every programming opportunity at Denver Public Library. And now she's the best library ambassador. So she, she just goes out and recruits people. She's at the gym. She tells people about the library. She brings them to our programs. And she is so connected and just living this. I just say, I want to grow up and be you, when I retire, because every day is filled with something joyful and fulfilling. So,
No,
yeah,
I love
it's really
that.
fun to be witness to these sorts of things at the library.
Let's talk about this nutrient dense. I love this.
It's this idea that I came up with. We can take a walk, and that's nice. But what if we add a expert in trees? And so while we're walking, this person is teaching us about the trees that we're seeing as we go. And then what if we add opportunities for people to connect with each other? So maybe we give them name tags so they know each other's names. Or maybe the librarian who's facilitating it is remembering people from time to time and remembering stories so that she can say, Kirsten, I understand you live in, I don't know where you live, Kirsten, but you live here and Robin lives here and maybe you have something in common. Or they can say, so and so, you were used to be a teacher, so and so used to be a teacher, and connecting people based on their interests. And maybe you can add also like resource lists to the experience so that when people come, you hand them a resource list that tells them about books on trees. And then it also tells them about other programs in the area that they can go to where they can learn about trees or other walking programs. It's like layering in all these different things so that it was just a walk, but now it became this place where you learned and you got exercise. Just what Robin was saying. You got outside, you were in your neighborhood, you learned about your neighborhood, you met people, you connected with the staff. And so by the time you leave, you've had like a really rich, engaging experience. And that carries with you throughout the rest of the day. And hopefully you can take those tools and you can take all those things that you experience and you can build upon them so that by the end you have a really rich life. Like you've added these experiences up, so you feel like your life is really full and rich.
And you're covering sort of a cognitive activity, you're covering a physical activity, you're covering a social activity.
Right.
And so you're getting all that density in one activity, which is kind of incredible.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you can do it yourself, you can do it anywhere. We work with the neurologist at CU quite a bit. And they were talking about people think that doing like crossword puzzles or brain games is good for your brain.
Hmm.
And they were saying, no, that's not what's good for your brain. But if you do a crossword puzzle and then you talk to somebody about it, or if you go someplace and you're in a cafe and you're doing the crossword puzzle and you're connecting, they were like, it's it's not just the puzzle. You have to build on it. It has to be a multidimensional activity. And interestingly enough, they said having a conversation like this or just talking to somebody is the most engaging thing you can do for your brain. It's the healthiest thing you can do because a conversation is unpredictable, right? You have to react, you have to listen, you have to think, you have to respond appropriately. You're learning as you go, you're like on the fly. And so just walking into a library, talking to staff, talking to other people, going to a program and having conversations, that's the best thing you can do for your brain and for your mental health.
I think we take that for granted, right? It
Yeah,
seems
we
like
do.
that's not that big of a deal, right? But it is, and having that conversation and that back and forth. And I love what you just were saying about if you're having a conversation, especially like, we didn't know each other before. We don't know where the conversation is going to go. Like you're thinking on your feet, you're having to stay engaged, and it takes more skills than we might appreciate sometimes. So,
Well, and for those of us who are around people all the time and having conversations all the time, I think we do kind of take it for granted. But you were just mentioning, retiring and sort of not knowing what to do. I think once people retire, once they start losing their social networks, opportunities for conversations start to disappear, especially in our modern. And so there are so many aspects of our daily life where we used to have conversations, we used to have to engage where we really don't anymore. It's exacerbated when you're older and when you're not going to work.
hmm.
One thing that I learned recently that I thought was so interesting is that when the retirement age was originally set at 65, the life expectancy was 70. So at most, you were expected to have maybe 5 years where you weren't working. Now, the people are living into their 90s and living even up to 100. Like your dad, for example. If you retire at 65, you could spend a third of your life not working. Like it's
Hmm.
a profound difference. And at some point, I think we're going to have to rethink the arc of work, the arc of like where retirement happens, what retirement looks like, because I don't think anybody ever intended for people to not have meaningful work for a third of their lives.
I mean, that's a big part of how we stay mentally sharp is at work or
Right.
volunteering or, other
Mhm.
types of like committee work. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
ways to do it, but if you are starting to get isolated and you're not involved in those groups anymore, the opportunities diminish. And I'm laughing about what you're saying about socialization because I say to my mom, Mom, why don't you sign up to get Instacart delivery to your house, right? It'd be great. You don't have to go to the grocery store all the time. Because when you go to the grocery store with my mom, it's like a 2 hour endeavor because she wants to chat with everybody. And Robin knows my mom. She's like, she would talk to a tree. And finally, one day she was like, I like going to the grocery store. It's my social time. I get to get out. I mean, she does other things also, but I get to get out. I get to interact with people. I get to talk with people. And it made me stop getting frustrated with her when she's in the store and I just want to get home. To really understand that for her, this is feeding her in a lot of different ways. And I need to just let that happen and be fine with that.
I'm really impressed that you were able to listen to her because I that can be hard. And I'm also impressed by her own self-awareness that she was able to articulate why it was important for her to go.
I'm not always that good, but I try.
That's pretty good.
Some of the decluttering conversations in our house where I'm like, Mom, do you really need this? And she's telling me that for sure she does need 5 colanders or the carbon paper from the 1960s or whatever it is. But I've learned to just try to accept it, and I might not understand it, but it's not for me to decide always. I would classify myself not as a deep in the trenches caregiver yet. My parents are both they're independent, they live on their own. How does the library also support that caregiver?
I'll I'll start and you riff on it because I think Amy has taught us how to identify caregivers and how to identify people who might have maybe some cognitive decline or something, and that they're showing up to the library. We need to meet them where they're at, right, in their aging journey. And so I think that I have two sisters that come to the library, and I don't think they're twins, but they could be twins. They look just alike, same stature and everything. And one is very verbal and, obviously doesn't show much signs of decline. And her sister is nonverbal at this point. And it's just such a pleasure to have them both come in and meet them both where they're at and be a place of support for what I'm assuming is the caregiving sister, right? So a place where she can come and sort of keep her sister engaged and active in the community, and a place where she'll be still respected, because we've learned so much from Amy on how to treat people, and how to meet them where they're at.
You're so kind, Robin. I think one way that we support caregivers is just being a kind place where you can go with your loved one and you're both treated well, just like what Robin was saying, and you're treated like humans with complicated, beautiful needs and things to contribute. And that's a relief for a caregiver to be in a place where they don't have to be concerned about how their loved one's going to be treated. We also have information and resources. We do have support groups for caregivers, depending on what kind of caregiving you're doing. We have programs that you can participate in with your loved one. We have, for example, Memory Cafe, which I know you know about, Kirsten. That's specifically for people with dementia, along with their caregivers. But what's wonderful about that program is people come and both people have fun. And people have said to me, oh, it's just like a date. We can just enjoy ourselves and we can just relax.
Yeah.
And I think that is a way in which the library and honestly other arts and cultural organizations that offer classes and programs, just going to something with someone you love, even if you're taking care of them, or providing support like you're doing, Kirsten. If you and your mom could go take an art class together, it would take you out of that caregiver role for a little while, and it would let someone else focus on your mom and engage with her and teach her, and you could just enjoy it together, just like a mother and daughter. And allowing people to step out of the caregiver role and just have that same relationship that they've always had, I think is another thing that we do. And caregivers can find their own sort of their needs met at the library. They can find support, resources, networks, community, all the things that they need to keep going.
You're saying so many things that I want to dive deeper on. So one of them is you were talking about, Robin, a little bit about some of the signs and things. Like, I'm really impressed that somebody could walk into the library. You might not know them at all, or maybe you do a little bit, but you are able to read and interpret some of what might be going on for that person. So are there a couple things that you could educate me on? Like, what are some signs to look for that I could be more mindful of, to recognize cognitive decline, either in my own parents or in the people around me?
I don't want to recognize signs of cognitive decline as much as I want to see the person in front of me and meet them where they're at. So whether you're an older adult or whether you're a young person, when your middle name is public, like the Denver Public Library, everyone is your customer. So everyone is welcome. And so you're going to see people on a lot of different journeys at a lot of different stages in life. And, we're trained to meet people where they're at. So if you come to me and you're nonverbal, right, I'm going to do some improv and figure out how we're going to be able to work together and make a connection. The sisters that I was referring to, I built a connection with them over time too. It's not like they're just walking in and I'm making an assessment, although I might do that too. But this is relationship building. So I know, after having met them several times, what's most welcoming, what reads is most welcoming to them, what reads is most helpful to them.
And I would add, I mean, kind of adding on to what Robin said, I do a training on dementia and how to communicate with people who have dementia. And after I did that training once, somebody said to me, "Oh, this is really just a training about being kind." And I was like, "Yep, that's what you do. You're just kind to everyone." And exactly what Robin says, you work with the person in front of you. And that's what we really try to do. But speaking to your specific question about like signs, maybe things to look for, particularly if you live far away from parents, I think it's more challenging because people can get into these patterns of conversation of like, "Hey, how are you? How's the weather? I saw Joe yesterday. I went golfing." And it's like the same pattern, and they're able to engage in that really, really well. And so children who live far away will be like, "Dad sounds fine. He went golfing. We had a whole conversation." But people who live near them are like, "No, if you were here, you could really see their inability to kind of problem solve or do things or take care of their daily needs." And that's one thing I always tell adult children who live far away is that pattern of conversation can be deceptive. We talked a little earlier about how the fact that cognitive decline and dementia aren't natural parts of aging, and they really aren't. I always say your brain gets different as you get older, not worse.
I love
Uh,
that. I love that.
yeah, and there are things that your brain actually gets much better at. Older people are much more able to contextualize information. They have something called developmental intelligence, which is what we would probably call wisdom, but it's intelligence that you can only get from experience. And so young people just don't have it, not because they're young, but just because they haven't had enough experiences to build that. Older people are better able to hold a paradox. They're better able to see nuance. They're better able to live in the gray area. There's a lot of things. Yes, they lose the word, or they may not be able to remember little details. There are certain types of thinking they're not as good at, but there's other types of thinking they're much better at. So all of that being said, there will be times when people will start to decline cognitively. And you start to become concerned, not when little isolated things happen, but when it actually starts to impact somebody's ability to engage in their day-to-day life. When they stop being able to find their way to the grocery store, when they stop being able to cook dinner for themselves. My father lived far away before I moved him here to take care of him. And one of the very first things that was my indication that something was going very wrong was when I would ask him what he had had for dinner and he started saying, "I bought a salad at Walmart." And I was like, "You you keep buying salads at Walmart for dinner. Why aren't you making yourself dinner?" And it turned out he just couldn't make himself dinner anymore. Um, so I think when you start seeing people not engaging in the world the way they used to be, when they start not being able to do the things they used to do, that's kind of an indication that maybe you should get checked out. I also think technology is often the canary in the coal mine for cognitive decline, in part because that's the newest thing somebody has learned how to do. So that's the first thing that's going to go. So if somebody used to be able to check their email and suddenly they're like, "I don't remember, how do I check my email?" If they used to be able to use their phone, but you're realizing they're not able to do it, that's probably a bad sign.
I have a good friend who lives nearby, and her parents lived on their own for quite some time. And her mom has had more cognitive decline, and she cannot say enough about Memory Cafe. She's like,
Oh,
Memory Cafe has been like life changing, especially when her parents were at home. I mean, this would be like her mom's really like a major event of the day or the week. And, she would get picked up, they would get dressed. Like it was just that time, like you said, to go be around other people, both as a caregiver and from the mom, um, people that were experiencing similar things, right? And I mean, she just said it's unbelievable, it's life changing. I'm so glad I found out about it because it really made a gigantic difference in my life. So, thank you.
that's a wonderful thing to hear. And I think that a lot of people are reluctant to attend programs like that. They don't want to be a member of that club, right? They don't want the program to apply to them. And I understand that. At the same time, it's missing an opportunity to connect with people who understand what you're going through, to continue to engage in the world in a place that's comfortable and safe, and to have community and connection. And so it is, I'm glad that your friend's mother and that they were able to do that. I think that's a hump that some people have to get over
Yeah.
is the idea of attending a program like that.
I mean, for my parents too, I think my dad, I mean, he is very social. He's lovely to be around. He tells funny stories. He's really, happy to be around people, but he will always say, I'm not a joiner. I don't like to go to pre-organized things. Like that's not where I feel comfortable. And I'm wondering from your perspective, like, do you know, is that common? Or are there gender differences in who shows up?
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's mostly women. Men, I think your dad is not uncommon in sort of his reluctance to join into things. The men who do come, though, they thrive. They really thrive. And so it makes me sad actually, because I hear a lot of stories about fathers, husbands, brothers who just are not getting out in the world and are lonely and not engaged. And they're kind of their own worst enemy. Uh, we try very hard to create programs that will appeal, that have broad appeal. So one of the programs we do is called the Matinee Movie Club, and we partner with the Sea Film Center, which is here. It's a movie theater here in Denver, and we do first run films, and then we have a discussion afterward. And that one, maybe because I don't know why, it's not a traditional kind of library program. It's at the movie theater, so it feels less stigmatizing. I don't know. We get a lot more men at that one. Every once in a while, I'll find something and I'll be like, ah, that's it. That's how we do it.
That's going to
Yeah.
get the men out of the house.
Yeah.
It's like what you guys have been talking about all along about meeting people where they are, right? And really finding that opportunity to create connection. And I think from my standpoint, like that's what's so incredible about your wide diversity of programs, right? Because you offer a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And hopefully, I mean, you're going to have some people that are going to connect with all of it. You're going to have your Rose or your Daisy that's all about all the things, but you might just have your Charlie that is just going to find one thing and it's going to be nutrient dense. So he will get a lot from that one experience.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we're always trying to do, one of the layers behind our programming that people can't see, but we're always thinking about is a behavior change of having a great experience at a program, feeling confident because you had that wonderful experience, and that kind of driving a little bit of a behavior change where maybe somebody would be more willing to try something at the art museum. They might be more willing to try something at the rec center or at the Art Students League or wherever it is. One thing I do notice about older people, and we haven't really touched on this much, but our culture is incredibly ageist. And people themselves have a lot of internalized ageism, kind of self-inflicted ageism. And as people get older, they kind of marginalize themselves. They'll say, oh, that thing at the art museum, it's probably not for me. It's probably for younger people. I'll be the only older person there. I shouldn't go. Oh, I can't do that. I'm too old to do that. I can't learn that. I'm old. They really start to limit themselves. And so we work really hard to encourage people to fight those ageist thoughts. I always say to people, if you're still breathing, you can still learn and you can still grow and you can still create. Driving that behavior change, fighting those ageist beliefs, encouraging people to be out in the world, it starts to snowball. Kind of like
Right.
what Robin was saying with Daisy, right? Once people have a great experience, that gives them the courage to have another experience and another. So, like you, Kirsten, with your podcast or with talking things up in the world, encouraging people, it just has a beautiful impact that just keeps going and going and going.
I see this all the time around technology. So we offer drop-in tech help at my branch once a week, and just generally, I have a lot of older adults come to me and they believe they feed into these narratives about themselves that they're too old to learn. I'm technologically illiterate is the thing I hear over and over and over again from people, and it just pains me. I don't want people to believe this about themselves. It can be difficult to learn a technology, and like Amy said, that might be a marker for someone like showing up like this is where I know something's happened in terms of decline. But Otherwise, the library is a really safe place to learn about technology, right? So, as caregivers listen to your podcast, I hope they will help like encourage their loved ones, and maybe it's a warm, like you bring them in the first time for drop-in tech help. You don't just get on the phone and say, Dad, there's drop-in tech help at your library. You like
Right.
take them
He's not going
there.
to go.
Right.
Right.
But if you, maybe you but we do have 70 and 80-year-olds at my library coming in with wanting help with their website or wanting to get onto Libby, which is our electronic book or electronic audiobook app, so that they continue to enjoy books. And we're a really receptive staff in terms of that sort of information need, right? We are going, again, meeting people where they're at, and we're heavily trained on how to instruct on technology so that you don't come in and feel really bad about yourself because you don't know how to use it, right? We're going to sit with you and walk through the steps and give you some guides so you can go home with them, because we don't learn things the first time we're exposed to them. So you're gonna have questions after you leave me, and we're trained to help people with these things. So
Well, and also you're patient and you're not emotionally connected to the person that needs help. Offloading the tech support to a patient trained staff who knows how to be a good teacher at the library seems like an amazing idea.
it's been paid for with their tax dollars, and please let us help.
Well, and I think, technology is just the newest thing. It's hard to learn new things for all of us, right? Everyone, even my 17-year-old daughter, has trouble learning new things. And even she has trouble learning new technology. And she's a digital native. So I try to normalize that for older people. It's hard for everybody, it's not just hard for you. And if I tried to learn something they're an expert at, it would probably be challenging for me as well. And you are so right, Kirsten. If you have sort of an emotional overlay or kind of charge, don't be the one teaching.
No.
I couldn't teach my daughter how to drive. I didn't do that, right? I paid someone to do that.
Yes,
So,
totally. I mean, and it's funny because with our kids, I feel like we recognize that. I'll speak for myself. It probably took me a lot of years to learn some of those lessons, but eventually I did learn them. And I knew I'm not going to be the person helping my child with this. I'm going to have a tutor or a driving teacher or something else. But with our parents, it's just been harder for me to recognize that, I think. I feel like I should be able to do it. I should have the patience. But now that I've just come to really be mindful, there's so much in that shift of it's not power dynamic, but communication dynamic, right? Where like we were the child, we were the student for so long, and now we may be also the teacher in addition to being the student. And that can be challenging for our parents.
that shift is really challenging for everybody. And being patient, just like you've said, being mindful and aware, and offloading it when you can, it's probably better for everybody involved.
I believe that Denver Public Library either used to or still does like partner with the art museum and some of the other cultural resources in our community to either provide programming or passes or access. And I just wanted to ask you, am I right in thinking that's a thing that happens? And can you talk about collaboration between other cultural institutions?
We do a lot of programs with different organizations. You're exactly right, Kirsten. So we do this series, for example, at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, where we do something called diorama close-ups, which for those people who don't know, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science has these wonderful dioramas, and we get a DMNS scientist comes and we have a talk around the dioramas and we have a conversation and people can ask questions. We've done programs with the Denver Art Museum. We do a photography class with the University of Denver where we connect older adults in the community with DU students. And that's actually a really interesting program because when we first started this program, I had this really ageist idea. Oh, we're going to do something nice for older people and connect them with these young people, and it'll help that keep them from being lonely. But we always evaluate our programs afterward. And what we found was it was actually the young people who really benefited the most. They were anxious about the future. They had their whole future ahead of them, which sounds great, but is also friggin' scary, right?
Hmm.
They didn't know how it was going to play out. And they were away from home and they had no older people in their lives. They were just surrounded by other young people who didn't have any perspective based on life experience. And all of the young people said it was so refreshing to be around older people who had the ability to reflect on their lives, who had this wisdom, who were very grounded and very solid. They really benefited from it. And it was an unexpected thing for me. I thought we were doing a program for older people, and it turned out we were really doing a program for college students. Right. And
I
actually,
love
the
it.
research shows that younger people are more lonely and more isolated and more depressed than older people. I'm sure, have you heard about the happiness curve? Do you know that term?
But I'm not
And
an expert, so I'm happy
I'm
for
not an
you to
expert either.
tell
I
me
read the
more
book.
about it.
I mean, I read the book, but the term refers to the fact that actually happiness kind of dips and then it goes up, and older people tend to be happier than younger people. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Uh, the change in their expectations about what life should be, the fact that they have gone through so many experiences and they have perspective. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for that. But yeah, it's hard to be young. It's really hard to be young. And being around, we live in a really age segregated society. And so that's sad for everybody. It's sad for young people. It's sad for older people. It deprives younger people of the opportunity to talk to somebody who's been through it before. We did a program, it was another intergenerational program. It was a storytelling workshop, and it connected young people in the queer community with older adults in the queer community. And it was the exact same thing where the young people were the ones who said, it's so scary. And it was so helpful to talk to somebody who was older who said, I've been through this. It's okay. It'll be okay. You can lead a good life. You can make everything work out. And it's just beautiful. And kind of as Robin said, the great thing about the library is it's free to all, so there aren't economic barriers. One challenge with that is I think people have this idea, oh, if it's free, then it's probably not very good, or it's probably not worthwhile. But we do pay, like we pay the presenters, we pay a lot of money for the programs. And so they're as high quality as any program you would do somewhere else.
I'm curious if you know, Amy or Robin, is this something that people would find in other libraries in other parts of the country?
It depends. It depends. We're really lucky here. Shout out to the voters of Denver who have voted for us to have funding. Thank you very much to the city and county of Denver. And so we're pretty lucky that we can afford to provide these high quality programs. And I also think we're lucky that we had a library leadership that sort of allowed me to kind of forge this path. I got a lot of freedom to do that. Not all libraries would provide somebody with that kind of freedom, but there are a lot of libraries that offer similar things. And I think it's growing, and it's okay to ask for it too. I mean, as Robin said, it's your tax dollars. Ask your library for a high quality program. And if it's not your library, a lot of communities have rec centers. A lot of communities have these other arts and cultural institutions. And I don't think it's just libraries, right? There's a lot of places to go for different things.
What has been a key aha or revelation or learning experience that working with this group of people to build this programming has happened for you?
I mean, I've had a lot of ahas.
You have, okay. This is for either one of you, but yeah, Amy.
I loved my parents. I was close to them, but I had a lot of ageist ideas, I have to admit. And one of the things I say to other staff is, you need to work on those ageist ideas because you will get older and they will come back and bite you in the ass. They really will. Those ideas you have about old people, when you're old, those will be ideas you have about yourself. And I see that. I see that in my work. I see people on that trajectory, and I really encourage them to work on it. And my ageist ideas really blinded me to the fact that older people, that your older adulthood, it can be really rich and meaningful and rewarding. And that older people are not the grumpy, cranky, helpless, feckless people that we see on progressive insurance TV commercials. They're actually really wise and kind and patient they're the most present people I work with. They're very present. And I don't know that I would have known or predicted that when I was 40 and thinking about who I wanted to work with.
It's so fun to see, like, yeah, that those stereotypes don't fit, right? We don't need that. We don't need to carry that baggage around with us. That's an
I
aha moment, Robin.
I was just thinking when I was in my 20s, boy, 57, I'm 57, that would have seemed really old to me. Like nothing relatable about that. And now I could just put myself back in my 20s and my 30s so easily. Like I just, it's right there for me. And so like your dad, I'm just assuming now with a little bit of what was the term? Not wisdom, but Amy, give me the term again.
Developmental intelligence.
Intelligence. I'm going to use that a lot. I
Developmental
love that one.
intelligence. I know now I can flip it to my 80s and my 90s, and that all those rich experiences throughout my life are going to be just as accessible to me. But I'm going to look like this different person who reads as completely old to the world, right? But I won't feel that way inside, right? I'm just going to be able to access all of those chapters of myself. So that really resonates with me, just like for your dad. I guess in terms of the library, I realized that older adults are not a monolith, right? You've got your super agers, you've got your 50-year-olds, you've got your people who are just retiring, you have your people who are having a rich retirement, you have your people who are having a lot of sorrows and, financial sorrows or the loss of folks. So we all contain multitudes, right? So there's not just one way to age. There's not one persona around it. It's just rich, just like all of life is.
I feel like that is a beautiful full circle moment to wrap up on because I think that's kind of where we started, right? And just really appreciating there aren't stages, there's not one size fits all. And that's an important way to kind of embrace the journey of caregiving with our parents. And hopefully we learn, we get a little bit better at it. We get more accepting. And I love the way you're thinking about that. I feel like when I see my mom at Christmas, I'm going to ask her like, I still feel like I'm 28 years old. Does she still feel 28 years old? Well, with that, do you guys have anything else to add today?
My parting thought is wherever your parents are at, just kind of breathe and try to appreciate what they have. I think that, and I experienced this with my parents, we can get really distracted by the ways that they've changed and what they can't do and all the losses. And that's painful and that's something to grieve for sure. But at the same time, that can create a situation where we forget to really just appreciate what they do have.
Well, I am so grateful for both of you for being with us today. And I know my listeners will take away lots of wisdom and developmental intelligence from our conversation. So thanks for being part of Who Gets the China? Who Gets the China is written and hosted by Kirsten Mao, produced by Aaron Bryce of Blue Ogden Productions. Our theme music is composed by Greg Fellman of Wind Sand Productions. Our cover art is by Jen Beam of Gigawatt Studio. For more stories and expert advice, follow along on Substack or at www.whogetsthechina.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might appreciate the conversation. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.